today, and good morning. I'm Tanvi Motwani, and I work at the product search team at A9. A9 it basically powers the product search of Amazon. So if you see the search bar at Amazon.com, that's powered by A9, right? So today I'm going to be talking about query understanding in product search. And how many of you have used Amazon for buying? Cool. So it'll be a nice, easy talk for me now. Okay. So let's see the product page. So I think most of you must have seen what's the Amazon product page, right? So we have a search bar. We have the user type in a query, and a query is typically free text. So it's unstructured text. It's mostly around 3 to 4 words, and the user types in the query, we get it in our backend algorithms, we churn what the relevant products are, and we display products on the search page, right? So let's click on the first product here. What we see here is detailed product information. And what do we mean by product information, right? It contains unstructured text. Now, similar to web, we have a lot of unstructured information. So web docs are just free text, right? So we have that, and we try to understand that unstructured text. Along with that, we have a lot of structured information as well, right? So we know the product here, the brand is Nike. So there's a clickable link that can go to Nike brand store and give you Nike information about rest of the products. So we know that information. We know the price here is between 37 to 119. So we know that. And we know that it's a Prime product, right? So many of you guys must be knowing that Prime is a membership service in Amazon. So that'll give you special benefits of fast delivery, etc. for Prime eligible products. So we know that here. And we know that the color is gray and pink. We know that the category tree, this is the category tree. So we know that it lies within the shoes category, and within that it lies under the women's category. So we know that information, and we understand the category tree here. We also know the dimensions, and we know a lot of structured information, right? So other than that, if you see on the right side, we have add to cart and add to wish list. We also have buy button, which you can see here, and that we use to track user information. So we have a lot of behavioral information of the user, and we track that through these buttons. So on the product side, we have a lot of information, right? We want to make use of this information because, like, with a lot of data comes a lot of responsibility. So we want to show right products to the user. We want to try to show relevant products based on this information. The challenge is, on the query side, we have unstructured text. So we have free text. Now, how do we parse the query? How do we tag parts of the query so that we can understand what the user is meaning here, right? So now what we do here is, given the query, we try to structure the query so that we can match it with the products and then give relevant products on Amazon. So in this query, our algorithms tag Nike as a brand, they tag shoe as a product tag. Under 200, we understand that it's a price constraint. We understand that for women is the gender, and we understand that the user wants Prime product, right? Now, given this, we can match Nike brand of the product, and we can show more relevant results. So let's see our goal. Before getting into how we actually do that, let's see what our goal is. So our most important and foremost goal of query understanding team is to increase the precision of the system. We do have other projects to increase the recall, but query understanding most importantly concentrates on the precision. Now we do that using 2 techniques. One is filtering and one is ranking. Filtering is pretty strict. So what it means is, if in the previous query something was above 200, we just filter it out. We don't show it. We have very strict criteria. And ranking is more lenient. So what it does is, when there is a match between query structure and product structure, those products are just boosted higher in our ranking, right? So that's how we deal with this. The other important thing is customer experience. We really take care of the look and feel of Amazon.com, and the customer should have a good search experience, right? Even if, like, the products they don't see or they don't want to buy it right now, but the whole customer experience overall should be a fine one. And so we have very responsive UI, and UI widgets, and I really like that part. So how query understanding can trigger those UI is the customer experience part. So, so as I said, filtering means filtering out the products that don't match. So in this example, we use the same query, Nike shoes under 200 for women prime, and trust me, people type all sorts of queries. So this is just a very common one, it's pretty long, but we have a bunch of long tail queries. So using this, we know that the person is looking for Nike brand, and we'll do a restriction of the Nike brand. We also know the person is looking for shoes. So on the left side, we'll see that the shoes part is bold. I don't know if you can see it here, but the shoes is bold here, that category. So we try on the left side to show what we have done. So we have restrained into shoes, we'll just show it to user. We do price constraints. So again, on the left side, if you see, there's price to 200. So we show the restraint of the user doesn't like the restraint, the constraint that we have done. They can change that number, so it's just a free text, right? They can change it. So we want to show exactly what we have done to the user, and that's where the customer experience comes into play. Again, we want women's products as told by the query, and then we want prime products. So it's again a checkbox here. And finally, the UI widget on the top shows you that we have done women's constraint, we have done prime eligible constraint, and we have done price constraint. So the other thing, we use it for ranking, right? So we want MacBook Pros in this query, but as you see, there's a lot of accessories, right? There is protective cover on the second product. On the fourth one, there's a hard case, and that happens if you just treat the query as bag of words, right? So if you just treat MacBook Pro and try to find that in the product title, product description, we get second and third because the protector, it's like protector for MacBook Pro and hardcover for MacBook Pro. So those texts still belong as a part of the product information, so can we be smarter? So query understanding would then understand the query actually means a laptop and do that restriction, and then we rank higher the laptop products. So we sure will show accessory here, but that's way below in the search result, and we'll show the laptops higher. Okay, and UI widgets. So now the query is 2011 C300 Max. We implicitly understand the user means Mercedes-Benz here, and we'll show that UI widget here. So it's 2011 Mercedes-Benz C300. And we recommend the user to filter it or not based on whether it's right. So we want to make the UI very interactive here. So let's see how we do it, right? So given a raw query, we have text pipeline. And what text pipeline does is it tokenizes, it stems, it does the initial text processing of the query. It also does standardization. So if you see here, the example is 2.5 inches in quotes. We'll standardize that to 2.5 inch so that we can match it on the product side. So on the product side, with high probability, it's 2.5 inch, right? The next we give it to is query classifiers. So given this information, we give it to the query classifiers that do whole query analysis. So given the entire query, which classification the query lies in, and we have multiple classifiers. The most popular one is category classifier. So we have a bunch of categories in Amazon, like electronics, clothing, and in this case, it's an iPhone 6s case, right? So we classify that as cell phones. And even if it's a new product, so it's just released, we do a good job at classifying it because we've learned it from iPhone 6 and we've learned those behavioral information from that, and we try to generalize that and still do a good job. Next is query annotation. I'm going to show you more details about this in the forthcoming slides, but in general it is tagging parts of the query. So we know black is a color and dress belt is a product type. It's not dress, it's not belt, but it's dress belt, the whole thing, which is a particular type of belt. Now we provide this information to the search engine, and what we do is basically filtering and ranking and sorts of things that I've showed you. We also try to tag feedback of the user given this, right? So, and then we optimize our algorithms based on that. Now let's look at the query annotation part. So we'll zoom into that, and the particular example we'll take is phrase detection. Now what is phrase detection? So given a query, we split parts of query into phrases. So we just divide the query into phrases. So in this example, there are two phrases. One is black, and then the other one is dress belt. Phrases are non-overlapping sequences of token that cover the entire query. So every part of the query would be in some of the other phrase, right? And once a phrase is broken, it loses meaning. So take an example of dress belt here. You can't break it because dress means something else and belt means something else. Dress belt means completely something else. So we want to treat it as an entity. So why do we want to do it, right? Say we didn't do it. We just treated the query as bag of words and we just used unigrams. Unigrams are like the words of the queries, right? And then we'll match that within the product. So we get products like these. And what this means is, I don't know if you can see it, but the title here says dress with belt, dress with ribbon belt. So it has the words dress and belt in it, but it's not together. It's not a concept in itself, right? Now if we do phrase detection, what we can do is actually match dress belt with dress belt in the product. So on the product side, in the title here, we actually see dress belts and we get the right product, right? So how do we do it? Let's take it from the goal and then build it from there. So what our goal is to annotate parts of the query with phrase boundaries. So we want phrase boundaries in the query. The way we represent it is using begin and inside tokens. So begin and inside tokens are basically labels for each word of the query. And begin means you put a phrase boundary before the word, and inside means you put the phrase boundary inside the previous phrase. So in this, the begin is at black dress, and inside it is at belt, right? So the belt is contained in the previous phrase. Now, this becomes a sequence labeling problem, which is a popular problem in NLP. And one of the popular techniques for solving this problem is conditional random fields. And that's what we use. We use linear chain CRFs. The Y labels here are begin and inside tokens. The X labels are the words of the query. And we use all sorts of features here because it's a discriminative model. You can add features. I haven't shown here what are the features we use. So it doesn't come free, right? So once we have a conditional random field, we want to train it. So how do we train it? Training is the most crucial part of this process because manually annotating queries and the amount of traffic we get on Amazon, manually annotating that is very expensive. So we want to do automatic techniques to generate this training data. And the two blocks of doing this is data sets and scorer. So we'll take care of, in the rest of the slides we'll show how we do that, right? Okay. So let's look at the data sets we use. So the data sets we use are all kinds of it. And what does this data set show? It's a lexical data set. A lexical data set pretty much shows what a phrase means, right? So we have external data sets like Wikipedia WordNet. They are freely available, they're on the web, and we skip that. We have internal data sets, internal to Amazon, that is brand dictionaries of the brands of the product that are given to us. We have product hierarchy information. Along with that, the interesting piece here is behavioral data sets. And that's my best part here. We try to generate the data sets, right? Because a lot of times things said in the query are not in our internal dictionaries, neither in external ones. So we want to try to parse the queries itself to understand what the dictionaries are. There are two common things we do. One is collocation. Collocation tells you the probability of two words co-occurring together, and we use point-wise mutual information to generate that. The other one is, the fun part is reformulations, right? So a lot of times user gives us information. When they type a query and reformulate to another query, we get information from that. So take an example of Hello Kitty mug. It was reformulated to Hello Kitty cup, and we know that the weak spot lies between kitty and X word, right? So we know that we can put a phrase boundary there. Versus, there's not a lot of reformulation between hello and kitty. So we don't have that confidence to put a phrase boundary between hello and kitty, right? The other one is the scorer. So given this lexical information, we give it to the scorer, and the scorer then scores the segmentation. So given this query, Grace Hopper conference t-shirt, just because I didn't get it, I'm going to Amazon it now. So we have 4 words. The possible ways to segment them is 8. So possible way to segment a query is 2 raised power n-1, where n is the words, number of words in the query. So one possible way is I put the phrase boundary between Grace and Hopper, but that's probably not the right way. This might sound will resonate to you guys. So you put a boundary between conference and t-shirt. how do we score this? So scoring of a segmentation is scoring of a phrase, and we have an aggregation function to aggregate those scores of the phrase. So what is the score of a phrase? A score of a phrase is based on frequency of the phrase. Now what is the frequency of the phrase? The frequency of the phrase is number of times the user has searched the queries that contain that phrase. So we can see these could be possible queries containing Grace Hopper's conference, and then we'll accumulate that and find frequency of the phrase. Now, what happens because of this is there's an unfair advantage to shorter phrases, right? Unigrams and bigrams would have a lot of frequency versus trigrams. So, because Grace could be Grace Kelly, who's an actress, so it could be various things, right? So we want to take care of this, and we want to give advantage to longer queries, so we do exponential boosting on length of the query to take care of the bias. The other one is the lexical boosting. So based on the lexical data sets that we just saw, we are going to generate a score based on the number of data sets the phrase occurs in and the weighting of the data sets. So Grace Hopper conference occurs in Wikipedia, it occurs in reformulations, and we probably weight reformulations more than Wikipedia, and that's how we get some scoring. Okay, so right now we saw how to generate training data. We saw how to use that training data to train a conditional random field. We get phrase boundaries, we apply it to search engine. Now, once we apply to search engine, how do we validate it, right? The process doesn't stop there. We want to make sure the user has liked a feature. So how do we do that? So I haven't shown here, but we have two kinds of validation. One is offline validation, and the other one is online. So before we put a model into production, we have some offline validation. In the online validation, we do A/B testing. So it's a very common technique in machine learning. We do A/B testing, and we have control and treatment. The control is search results that are surfaced before we add the feature, and the treatment is after we add the feature. And we try to track differences between them on various metrics. Some of them are like click-through rate, purchase rate. But not only do we track the metrics, we want the metrics to be with high confidence. So we want to be confident about the metrics. So we have a particular time rate for which we run it, and we get some confidence over the metrics, and then we launch a model. Okay, so we've seen a lot of things that's concluded. We've seen that structuring a query is very crucial for increasing the precision of the system. And we have various ways to structure the query. We use lexical data sets, we use behavioral information. We saw what's the query understanding pipeline, what's a typical pipeline look like. We saw what is the importance of phrase detection for the search engine, how does it improve the search engine in ranking results. We saw how it can be defined as a sequence labeling problem, and then it's a very popular problem, and then we can solve it using generic techniques. Lastly, we saw how to validate these models. So once we have a model, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And at this point, I'm open to any questions that you guys have. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions? Sure. Do you have a mic there? Yeah, you can, if you can speak up, I can repeat your question.
Thanks for the talk. I just wanted to ask if you're using more embeddings as well in your source data.
Yeah, we are experimenting with using word embeddings. I can't go into the details of which projects are using it and how we're using it for some confidentiality reasons. Sorry about that, but yes, it is an important thing. Yeah.
Hi, I was wondering how you deal with ambiguity and you define a user intent, because for the example that you gave, like the black dress belt, how do you decide that the user just wasn't being lazy and typing black dress belt because they were just wanting to dress?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have, as I mentioned, on the right side we have this add rate, add to button, add to cart button, buy button. So we have a lot of behavioral information from the user already, And for queries that are popular, we can use that to get more confidence on what we've done. So we use that signal to some extent to get more confident. On the tail query side, we try to use generalizing patterns that can help us get more information about the tail query because we haven't seen that before, right? So yeah, we do some sort of things like that. Thanks.
Hi. So I didn't really catch, like, how do you find the BI tags?
I'm sorry, this will be the last question because we have another talk now. Yeah, sorry about that.
So if you can, like, explain better how did you assign the BI tags?
How to do a BI tag?
Yes.
So there's conditional random field that's a generic machine learning model. And what it does is tags part of queries, like part of speech tagging and named entity recognition. It just tags parts of queries with the tag it's defined to. So once you get the training data of the phrase boundary, we put the BI tags there, give it to the CRF, and then it will train on itself. Okay, if you guys have any more questions, I'm there after the talk, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions. Thank you.